Hello, everyone. Can you guys hear me?
Hi, Sana. Yeah, we can hear you fine.
Good, excellent. Could we get started or wait for a couple of minutes for more people to join? I think we can get started. We have only 1 hour, and I really want to um, finish some of the agenda items that I have in mind for today. I'll first start off with the deck that we have to present in the event, and I also need to work with you guys on the titles on the agenda, which somehow have edited, and I want to make sure that they are still correct. So I'll probably first start with the agenda and make sure that the presenters for the event are correctly reflected and in the right order, and the titles for the presentations are actually captured correctly as well. So I'm going to share my screen, and let me know when you guys can see that. Everyone can see the screen?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
Sana.
Okay. So I'm going to start with day one, SIG architecture. So the very first part of this session for the SIG architecture, starting 11:30, is going to be introduction, which I will be presenting on a slide on the working groups. The slide is in the deck that I shared yesterday. We'll go through that. And then I have to very quickly show the nephew architecture as it works with the rest of the industry projects. The projects include all the projects in ONAP, in general, and all other orchestration domains that exist in the industry, how that stays the way they are and how they can eventually interface with nephew. That's an attempt that we all have been working on up until now, and we'll look at that diagram. I yesterday reviewed that with Kandan as well on our progress. The next would be the ORAN presentation working group 2. And Tim is presenting that. So is that title correct, Tim, for your presentation?
No, it's on the drive. So it's called. Let me get the drive.
Okay. And I'm going to edit that runtime because I'm not going to find time
Sure.
after this. So
Yeah.
so okay, let me.
We're doing the Nepio ORAN. So it would be the ORAN roadmap is what it's going to be called.
It's okay. That's a good name.
Okay.
So I'm gonna call it ORAN
Roadmap.
nephew. Should I say ORAN nephew roadmap?
If you like, I call it Nepio-ORAN roadmap.
That looks good.
I wasn't sure what your conventions are. This is Nepio, by the way. Roadmap. Yep. There you go.
Okay. And Tim, you're presenting it, and that's correct now, right?
That's correct.
All right. Nephew / ORAN. Okay. Does this look right?
Yeah, there's a space before and after the dash, the first dash, just to break up the.
This one? Okay.
Yeah. And after. Yeah, there you go.
Should I? Okay. All right.
And I don't know, why are we putting working group 2? Oh, you just want to know what working groups they originate from?
Right.
Okay.
This originates from the working group 2. So this will actually be following an introduction of the working groups, what working groups does, and then each presenter is representing some of the work stream coming from that working group. The next is UX and modeling and Tosca working group 4. Does that sound right, Tall, you have the edit rights anyway, so you can change things as you like.
Yes, that's true. I'm kind of this will not be long, right? This whole session is 45 minutes. I think your part, Sana, will probably be the bulk of it. So probably Tim and me will have I don't know, 10 minutes each. For myself, there's just not a lot of content. It's probably going to be just 2 slides generally presenting the idea of this. We haven't actually done any work, but yeah.
Okay, you know what happens when we are actually switching between presenters? So a couple of minutes are changed between one person going and the next taking the mic as well. So roughly, I think it's a 45-minute session. The working group slide might take 5-6 minutes, and then the architecture and industry view would require some explanation, so might take 7-8 minutes as well. I think the ORAN roadmap can take 10-12 minutes as well, and then around 10 minutes for you all. I think we can all switch 10 minutes.
I think even less. I remember this also includes time for questions, right? And I imagine there will be quite a bit of discussion.
Right.
So to be honest, we should probably, I think, give 15 minutes for questions.
I agree.
And
I agree.
that means 30 minutes for all our presentations. So very, very little time. It's really just kind of an overview. Definitely nothing in depth.
I completely agree. So let's target for those times 7-8 minutes for the presentation, leaving 4-5 minutes for questions and leaving some buffer around. I think we should be good. I think the content is perfect for the day one.
I agree. I think it's a good overview. And by the way, we're not covering all the work groups here. Part of the work groups would be on the second day in the deep dive.
I'm going there. So I'm going there.
I just want to say that during day one, we should probably mention it too. You know,
Okay.
We're not covering everything today. Tomorrow will be part 2, something like that.
Perfect. So now I was very confused looking at the service assurance policies and observability workgroup 5 presentation presenters, Sandeep and Stephen. I think this was Subhash, and Subhash has prepared some slides too.
Yeah. So let me update this. It's actually going to be me. Subhash is not going to be present. I'm working with Bernard and Subhash on creating slides. So if you can edit this right now and remove Sandeep and put me instead.
Okay.
And no, Stephen as well. Yeah.
Okay.
Stephen will be, as far as I know, actually, I don't know if you really.
So we are working. This is Sandeep. Okay, we are working on observability for quite a bit of time, and we have presented in our Slack channel, and Vim and all those things have reviewed that. And observability is the core of our service assurance, right? So we have already come up with a framework, me, Stephen, Vim, and other people. And service assurance will be on top of our observability framework, which we are discussing. And we have already posted a framework there and design in our Slack channel, which we thought that we'll present to SIG1 soon. But observability, service assurance came up suddenly. So that is where things got a little confused. Okay, so our work is already there on observability. We have already modified we've got a lot of design and framework for observability, and observability will be the key. Service assurance will be over it.
Exactly.
Nephew will provide observability framework, which service assurance will use. Right? Without observability, service assurance will not work. Right? So, in our opinion, observability is the first thing should be discussed, and then a service assurance can be discussed.
So service assurance is a broader team. We could switch this order around. Observability and policies would make more sense to me.
Yeah, the title here is kind of old.
I don't know how this.
I generally agree. The order doesn't really matter too much. I mean, both of the top topics will be here. I just want to make sure, does Stephen know that he's on the hook for presenting this, the observability?
Yes, Stephen and yes, we are preparing slide together, Stephen and me.
Excellent.
And unfortunately, you people couldn't see our slides for observability, which we're discussing for last 2 months, and we have Slack channel. But that's quite. But
can you guys
to present.
work with Subhash as well? He has been trying to create this working group 5 for service assurance and policy and observability from the SIG-1 side. So maybe he can collaborate on his work with you guys, and eventually you guys can also contribute in working group 5.
Okay.
Yeah, without
Yeah.
observability, service assurance will not work. We have already
Um,
concluded that.
I agree. I was talking about the logistics on how to continue moving forward with this work. I'm saying that Subhash has also been working from Work Group 5 to create some slides, to present a picture. He's also taking some of the service layer use cases into account. So would be an excellent opportunity for you guys to collaborate with him, so you can join the forces of the effort together.
Yeah. Hi, sir. Subhash here.
Hi, Subhash.
So, yeah, perfectly. Miss, we are aligned with the same thoughts. We also discussed with the PIM that observability is our it's like we are going to consume from the observability framework. So that we are
perfect.
completely aligned. And I guess there should not be a problem if observability they present before the assurance slide. So I think we can manage it.
Right. So Subhash, is there anything that you have prepared for presenting? Are you guys all aligned together on how to use this time slot?
Yeah, Miss, we have put observability like a completely black box for us. So if any content comes from the observability side, it will be good for us. Means like we will consume it as a consumer. So yeah, it's good.
That's
Miss,
perfect.
we can.
You guys are going into the technology details. I understand observability is a prerequisite for us to be able to build policies. That's established. I'm saying for this slot at the work group 5 session, who are the presenters? I'm happy to take the names and put them here. So Tall, you are working with Stephen on that.
Well,
is there anybody else?
Yeah,
Okay.
and Bernard.
Should I put all the names, or these 2 names are enough? What do you think? I think the people who
For
are contributing
observability,
in
for
the
sure, you
slide.
can put mine and Steven name. Yeah.
Okay,
For
is that
for
Sandeep?
observability,
Is that Sandeep
mine and
talking?
Steven name you can put.
Sandeep, is that?
Yeah,
Yes,
Sandeep. Yeah, Sandeep talking.
Okay. So your
Yeah,
name's
Sandeep
here.
Jaiswal.
All right. Is there anything Subhash is going to present? Have you guys talked to each other?
Tal will present actually on behalf of assurance partners. We are collaborating and preparing the slides. Tal will be.
Anybody else who has contributed? These presenters can basically take their names just to acknowledge, and I think the presenters look good for me to me right now.
I think you can add Subhash's name. He will be available virtually, so he's technically a presenter as well.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, sorry, I have my hand raised and I have a suggestion here. There is really 2 topics. One is observability with Sandeep and Subhash, and one is service assurance. One is observability with Sandeep and Stephen, and one is service assurance with Tal and Subhash. Should we have 3 topics here instead of 2?
Yeah, I was going to suggest the same thing. I mean, we organized this originally just by use cases. That was, but it doesn't have to be by use case. So yeah, I think we can probably, service assurance use case is 1.
And yeah, you could. Yeah.
Okay, so if that is Stephen, and we'll take the next one for Tall and Subhash.
Yeah, and I think that makes sense. Start with the observability, then build up with service assurance.
Sure. Yes, I agree.
I think it's resolved everything. Yeah.
Yeah, you deleted a letter from Sandeep's last name by mistake.
Oh, perfect. It's Sandeep Jaiswal, right?
Yeah,
you have
Maybe
to do it
I'll
again.
pick up the whole thing again. Yeah, I take my words back. This is really not friendly.
Yeah. Sana, you said you loved Confluence, so.
I don't know. So many people in my team use that, but I think when I'm working with that, it's so bad. Okay, so does this look right? What about the next presentation? The title looks good. Let me go back to-
Sorry, one last really niggling point. Maybe add a work group 5 also in parentheses for service assurance and
Oh
policy.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I'll do that.
These are not critical details.
I know, and we could do this offline too, like you and me, Tall. But I think it's all good. If it's done, it's much better. So that because we don't really have much time left till the event.
Yeah.
And what about? Go ahead.
I'm about to send emails to absolutely everybody on the list to know what they're on the hook for and when and how much time they have. So it really needs to be finalized today, right? People do not have much time to work on their presentations left.
Exactly. So how does the other title look to you? RAN use cases, then ORAN and Open Air interface. Does this look right?
Yeah, and I thought I had until the session starts to build my deck. But okay, I'm going to be proactive. Title is good, Sana. Thank you. And I'm going to be the only one presenting, but actually I'll be presenting on behalf of Sagar and Joseph. So
I want to update
this is not my work.
presenters. Okay, should I put Alexi? Is Alexi talking?
Yes.
I really can't see the screen. Okay.
No worries. Yeah, this is Alexi speaking because Sagar and Joseph won't be able to attend, even virtually. So I'll present this use case on their behalf. So I'm just a voice, but that's their work.
You can contribute. You can basically use their name to acknowledge the contributions with your work, and it's all good. You are the presenter here.
Yes.
So Alex is one thing I think. Sorry, it's Wim. Sorry to interrupt, but you also are listed for the similar topic. I think in the SIG 2 release 2 stuff, right?
Yeah. I'll cover that one as well.
But is it a different presentation because we should make sure that we cover different aspects then probably?
It is slightly different. Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
Yes. On day one, I will cover more what is open air. So the day one is introduction to open air interface. I think you skipped it, Sana, but yes.
Yeah, here I'm gonna be here.
And what we do for R2 basically, because what's in R2,
exactly.
So our topic is more what are we focusing on in R2, right?
Yeah. So I'm going to have a slide on the operators that were built for R2. Okay. That's the goal of that, but it's going to be short. And the deep dive here is I will repeat that operator slide, but I have more content.
Okay, cool. Yeah, we should try to avoid overlap too much because
I have very minimal overlap, so it should be good.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead. Anybody?
Sana and Tall, for the working group 4, which Tall is going to cover, we have been your ask is to present what working group 4 have been doing for time. So I've been leading the working group 4 for last 2 months. We'll Tall cover all those things, like what are the things which we have covered, like Helm to operator and different approaches which we have for the.
We had a discussion on the working group 4 structure, how it was intended initially and what it evolved into. So the initial goal for the working group 4 was to actually cover the aspects of the experience and modeling, like a user experience perspective. And when you get to that SDK and Helm to operator conversions, we felt as if that work would actually fall under the SIG automation group. I don't know at all how we handled that, if there is anywhere where we are actually capturing that work.
In SIG release, I think it's covered with Steven, and there is a few speakers, one on Helm, I think. It's in SIG release that it's covered because Steven has it.
And who's talking? Who is the lead for the working group?
I think Liam. Go to Stevens. Yeah. So Liam is one of the talk. I think I'm presenting, but it's more the SDK for R2. So this is this one. Yeah, so that's where it's, and then Sandeep is listed.
So this subject basically relates more to the SIG automation, and that's why it's captured here.
Well, so what is the we discussed yesterday in one of our meetings? What is the user experience, and who is the user?
Now this has a conflicting answers. To me, the real user of the onboarding experience is the operator himself, because that's how the world is basically changing to a self-serve model. Currently, a lot of operators lack the skill set of the true cloud onboarding at the moment. So some of the vendors are actually coming in and helping the operators deploy and configure the network functions to the cloud. But I think an ask from most operators around the world, like it's one of the statements in the NGM and Cloud Native Manifesto in which we together agreed that this should be in-house self-serve model in which operators are the owners of onboarding applications to the cloud. So to me, from Nephew's perspective, it should be the operator, the end user of consuming that experience on how to onboard an application to the cloud.
So
not network function vendors.
The part, right? We have been trying to onboard the NFs, right, as part of working group 4. Like the Ericsson people came with the Flux. We had the other ways to do it. We are trying to onboard, right? And that's the user experience, isn't it?
Right. This is user experience.
I mean, you can't onboard your NF to the Nephew means what you're going to do. Like we all know, like you have to create a KPT package, your package variant set, and then ultimately controllers and all those things. These are the user experience, right? Like what is the user experience?
I think user experience also relates to the more advanced functions, like for example, building a UI, building it more self-serve, creating automation on top of your template packaging and deriving that into a more GUI-based experience, and eventually intersection of your existing packages with Tosca and kind of creating the higher level abstraction on the top. So I think there are two layers of that. The more southbound layer is closer to the templates itself, which is kind of captured in automation, and the higher layers can be captured in the workgroup 4, which is the interaction with the higher order templates as well. For example, Tosca and eventual service orchestration layers.
Then it becomes the UI will always be your user experience in that case.
Right.
Is it?
Yes.
The UI development is the user experience all the time.
I think so. Yeah.
Not sure. Okay, fine. So we got to move on.
And you know, a lot of these working groups are also evolving. Nothing is like written in stone. So we started like somewhere. It's evolving into something that's looking more like SIG automation. So we are focusing on that in SIG automation. And this is still not written in stone. So this could actually evolve into something different again. So we are constantly evolving, and I see that. And there is also a lot of cross-pollination between the working groups. And that's why we are kind of evolving and sometimes merging, sometimes collaborating again here and there. There is no strict borderline between the working groups. And I see what you're saying. Right? So the working groups discussion and the cross-pollination is a different subject. I think we will park it for now. Try focusing on the event and how everything is captured. Make sure that nothing critical is missed. And the presenters who should present are actually there on the agenda. As long as we are at least good for that, the rest we can fix along the way, right? It's a community effort. We can constantly improve on that. And I know the working groups require a reset as well, like a discussion, looking at the cross-pollination, we can reset that as well. It was a to-do list for myself and Kaushik for some time, and we'll look into that. But looking at this meeting, an event coming, let's move on and let's see if the rest looks good for now. Any other edits for the agenda? I'm going to switch to the slides then. This is looking good? Okay. If there's anything else that you look at the agenda, and if you don't have edit rights, reach out to me and Tal. We can also fix that offline. And now I'm going into the slides. And since Nephew became a part of the Linux Foundation networking, this template is not correct because I used it from the Dev Summit for one summit. Yesterday, myself and Kandan were in a meeting with Sunny, and she's working on getting us a template which would have the Linux Foundation networking logo. Now we don't have to use that all along. So for example, if it is a white slide, we are still fine. But if the slide is showing the Linux Foundation, would be better that we show Linux Foundation networking because that's the new association of Project Nephew with the Linux Foundation LFN actually. So I'll update the templates, which is a very small work, but bigger than that is the work that we have to do to basically put the slides all in together. And I'll be moderating the session, and I think Tal is going to help me because Kaushik is not able to fly for this event. It would be nice if all the final presentations are just running and people are coming in and switching their basically speakers. Would be would be less of a hassle if we are not switching between slides. So let's make sure everyone's slides are here eventually, and we can just run one presentation and keep bringing the new speakers, and would be less of the switching time. For this particular working group 1 architecture slide, I have lots of open questions, and I know we have not reached a stage where a convergence has achieved, but I reviewed the slide with Kandan yesterday, and Kandan liked this version better than the others just because he felt day one, a lot of people in the room would be brand new people, and for them, it would be easier to look at Nephew from a very high level perspective, like not making them go into the details because they probably won't understand the details before being able to see the big picture. And a lot of questions here. I think I tried to answer a lot of those comments. These comments were still coming. This diagram will go to the audience with a disclaimer that this is an evolving architecture. The community is still working on improving the design details. And there are lots of details to that. For example, if you put an X-ray on the SMO block, there is NFO working on O2, there is FOCOM working on O2, there are OM components within the SMO working on O2, and I can create this disclaimer that in the ORAN sessions, which are 2 sessions for 2 days, we are going to see the deep dives of some of that O1, O2 APIs and their details and how the roadmap would be evolving to basically accomplish that. Then Bernard had a question that these higher layers have nothing to do with Nephew. Why do they exist? The reason for their existence is that there is a lot of work happening in the industry, and this is a broad view that where Nephew actually fits in the broader ecosystem. So just for the sake of showing that we don't do anything with that, like those layers stay intact, but Nephew is bringing just the value at this layer in the network function deployment and onboarding and configurations, is that the scope of the Nephew in short term, and that's the value that Nephew is bringing in the overall brownfield ecosystem that exists in the industry. So people can actually place Nephew. Go ahead.
This is really my final comment on this because we've really gone through this so much. I would suggest just changing the title of this because this is not an architectural diagram. This is, I would call it orchestration narrative, or how it fits, as you said, the great larger orchestration narrative, something like that.
Domain orchestration.
I don't know what the domain would be here, but
multiple domains, cross domain automation framework.
Where Nephew fits in orchestration, something like that.
Okay, because let's work on the title. A shorter word, but of course the same message.
Right. That's
we can
the
say
problem.
Nephew with brownfield. Should the brownfield, or should they say brownfield looks like legacy?
Well, this is not just brownfield. I mean, they're going to be greenfield.
And SMO. SMO is very greenfield. Yes.
Yeah.
Nephew with cross domain.
Nephew and orchestration. I don't know, something like that. Any other suggestions from people here? How to make it more where Nephew fits in?
I would say where Nephew fits. Basically, I would say it like that.
Yeah, exactly, that's perfect.
Yeah. And yeah, you know, the controversy.
Not with a question mark. I think just remove the question mark. I think where Nephew.
Yeah.
Sorry, Tom. Yeah.
So
like
sorry,
that?
You know,
okay.
The one aspect here that's just continuing for me to be.
Or we could say Nephew and industry would look more formal. These are the industry initiatives, right? Like they're all going, and other industry bodies are still working on them. But how does Nephew fit with them in the global ecosystem?
I think where Nephew fits seems to me to be generic enough.
Okay then.
Yeah, just one issue to emphasize is that, you know, the way it looks right now is that Nephew manages the clouds. And because of the stack diagram, right? So I don't know what to do about this. You know, I tried to do it in a different way.
I liked your version. It was functionally correct to me, and I learned some aspects of the Nephew design with that. I liked it, but Kandan also said that it's a little bit more detailed for the people who are not familiar
totally
with
understood.
Nephew.
I'm not saying to use my my version. You know, I was trying to add to the conversation here, but it's the lines. You know, if you look, for example, at ORAN SMO, ORAN has this whole way of managing the clouds, right? So there should be maybe a line from ORAN to the clouds as well. this is where you don't want it to get more complicated, but by simplifying it in this way, in this layered approach, and if we're saying where Nefio fits, well, Nefio is not the cloud manager, and it kind of looks like it from this diagram.
But you know, some of the messaging will actually clarify that. So basically, when I clarify that the internal components of SMO are not captured in this detail here, the FOCOM and NFO and all the O2 interaction will be discussed in detail in the upcoming presentations from ORAN, would kind of leave that curiosity open, and maybe there will be a better explanation for that, right? It just says that this is one possibility. It doesn't say that it's the only possibility. So for example, even in the HC diagram, when you see that there is an arrow coming from the NFO to WIM, there is also a possibility that sometimes the NFO directly goes to the WIM. Like that possibility always exists. So it's a potential option, but it's not the only option. So maybe the messaging can clarify like some of those doubts on that.
Yeah. I mean, it might just be my specific problem here. If nobody else thinks this is a big problem, then it's absolutely fine.
It is a problem to all, and I'll capture that in the messaging. I will make sure that it doesn't look like the cloud manager and the only way to reach cloud. That is also not what we are trying to basically portray, right?
Yes, thank you for thank you. Yes,
I captured. I will make sure the notes include that.
I'm done with all my comments.
Yeah, Susanna, I have one remark still left here. Is like we are specifically calling out ORAN, and then we put service orchestration next to it, right? At the end of the day, I believe there is one service orchestration, and ORAN is a component, is a flavor of service orchestration.
WIM, yes and no. Yes and no. So I completely agree with you. So and now I'm going to go into a bigger debate. I'm working as a service orchestration lead in my organization, and when we look at the RFIs and RFPs of the SMOs implementation details from different vendors, what other vendors have done is in reality they have repurposed the NFO, the network function orchestrator, as the generic VNF manager. They use the same components from their products and they use that inside that. For FOCOM, they use the components of the NFO. So then I was asking them questions that what is the purpose of the ORAN Alliance to introduce two new blocks, NFO and FOCOM, for something that already existed in the industry in other forms? Like, why didn't they reuse the existing components? So in reality, to me, if I have to reduce the amount of tooling with the vendors and try to create a horizontal stack of the orchestration ecosystem, I would not like to introduce a brand new SMO, because the new things are really the RIC and the other functions that are very relevant to the ORAN. But these functions are uniform. The VNF managers, the NFVOs, and the cloud configuration, we are doing it in the service orchestration layer as well. So you are 100% right.
Yeah. What I'm trying to say is this, right? I mean, we basically, this slide, in my view, tries to represent the split between domain and service somehow, right? ORAN, we call out specifically, whereas for core, we don't do anything, right? So there is transport, there is a bunch of other things that fit into the space. My main comment is, I do agree with you that ORAN is a little bit of a Swiss Army knife, and they basically are in every layer somehow, right? That's what you're saying, I think. But so what is for me strange about this slide is that, okay, for people in ORAN, they will call out specifically, the other spaces are not. If you see what I mean.
No, I completely understand. And it's a problem. And I'm just trying to think what is the best way to represent that.
So what I would do is present service orchestration as a big blob, right? And put ORAN inside. But ORAN also basically, as we were discussing in various people, also has legs into the domain controller as well. But I would put one service orchestration and put the SMO of ORAN as a blob within it. And that's same to what
really
Tal
like
says,
that.
right?
I would actually, I'm actually trying to do that practically already in TELUS. And I like to do that. But I'm wondering, would the ORAN people be okay with that if I do it that way? In reality, that's the truth. SMO is one of the modules of the SMO are actually some of the functional blocks of the bigger service orchestration layer itself.
Okay.
And some of these things are common.
Hang on. So let's be clear. I'm sorry. So if you look at it, ORAN, SMO, is a service orchestration for the RAN domain. Just like you have service orchestration for core, or transport. That's typically the way that you see it. And then there's this end-to-end orchestration. So it's still all part of an orchestration domain. There's just a layering or separation of concerns that are involved, right? So if we're going to show this, we ought to show the domain orchestration layer in conjunction with the service orchestration or the end-to-end service orchestration layer. I believe that's what Wim is trying to get to.
Right.
Correct. So
right.
I would make one layer at the middle, right? Service orchestration across the board, and then have a blob for ORAN, a blob for core, a blob for, and so on and so forth. And for me,
I have seen that.
Towards Tal's point, I think sorry, let me quickly finish. So to Tal's point, I think it's the same what Tal was saying into the Nephew space, right? Is that Nephew is not going to manage all, right? Nephew will call out to a managed service provider from Google or AWS or whatever, and they will do the actual work. But Nephew might be the guy that triggers it, right? But it's not doing the actual work. It's the same. It's a similar comment in my view.
Yeah. So if it looks like that, do you think, Wim, it's looking better? Because I'm not including transport right now.
No, what I would do is make one blob over service orchestration and ORAN, and have then ORAN like you do, have like ORAN somewhere, an icon of ORAN inside of that.
Okay, I get it. What you're saying.
And maybe other items or something. That's, I think, a better representation, because there will always be a question of who interfaces with whom, and it will be a red hole.
Yeah, this.
Lots of
I want to make it transparent.
Oh, move the order to the back.
Yeah, I tried that. Give me 1 second. Order
and send to
back. Yeah, okay, perfect.
Something like this.
Oh, and one final point. Could you remove DevOps from the GitOps/DevOps? We talked about this.
Yes.
The names sound the same, but they're totally different things.
Yeah, they do. So basically, Kandan and I were discussing the GitOps and DevOps difference as well, and we thought that there are multiple exposure paths to Nephew, and we are also talking about the brown field. So a lot of organizations don't have service orchestration. They only use the DevOps today. So tomorrow, if they have to take the Nephew code and deploy the network functions to the Nephew code from their DevOps, they can also do that. Maybe they're transitioning towards the true GitOps model, but maybe they're in the middle of the DevOps and the GitOps, right? So for them, there is also an opportunity to start embracing the Nephew code from the open source and start working on it. That's why DevOps was still kept there. Giving the people an opportunity that you could also use that. So should I leave it there, Tal, with that?
I would leave it there. I would put CI/CD instead of DevOps.
Okay, then it's more generic. Then.
If we want to be, but sorry, Tal, the question was towards you.
I'm happy, Tal, if you're okay with that.
Again, as long as this is not an architectural diagram, you can put anything you want. Honestly, the lines are not very meaningful to me, but if this makes sense to you, if it makes sense to Kandan, then I'm absolutely fine with it.
Yeah, and these hierarchical diagrams, they are never the architectural diagrams. Like, they're just showing stacks and how they stacks fit together from the resource layer all the way to the service layer. In the true implementation, those diagrams never make sense.
Here's what I think often happens in these presentations. A lot of people don't listen to the words. They take photos of the diagrams and send them internally to their teams and saying, this is Nephew, right? So you present it one way, but people, as you can see, a lot of us here have, specific comments about issues that we care about. People do make a big deal out of these diagrams, so they're always very risky to do, but there's just no choice here. We're not going to be able to align on something, and I think, whatever you see fit, you're the presenter. And I'm not saying that in any passive-aggressive way. You're the presenter. It's your presentation. Please present as you see fit. The worst case is we have a discussion around it and the Q&A, and we clarify things. It's absolutely fine.
Some of the things we can capture in messaging, right? Me and Kandan also spent some time on it yesterday. Yesterday, when we were talking about the SMO, we know that there are things in Nephew. For example, the NFO and FOCOM functions are actually handled by Nephew. So I thought, let's draw a small icon of Nephew here, because Nephew is actually represented in a small module of the overall SMO architecture. And then we removed it. We removed it because we felt as if that's not showing that Nephew is doing all of it. Of course, it's doing a very small part of it right now in its scope. But then the messaging will handle that the ORAN presentations coming next are going to talk more about that detail, which is going to leave the audience with some open thinking that this is not the final picture. And I hope that they don't take it that way.
Because we discussed that specific point yesterday in the working group too, and you'll see when you go through the slide, we have open-ended question on whether or not Nephew has a role in the SMO. We do believe yes, but it's too early to convey the message that XYZ role by Nephew will be of the SMO will be fulfilled by Nephew. So we want to be mindful as well about the type of expectation we set here.
Right. And we can also add the disclaimer that these are some initial thoughts. These are some ideas where Nephew could fit, where Nephew could evolve. This is evolutionary. The community is still working on finalizing the details on how the evolution would happen eventually. So all these disclaimers will kind of put us in a relatively less critical stage. So
that's why I made a suggestion on the chat, and I'm sorry to get back to here, but the title could be initial thoughts on where Nephew fits. But it could be a voiceover instead of in the title.
Okay, yeah, I have to make sure that I voice it over that way. I think the title is becoming more vague with more initial thoughts and where it fits, kind of.
I have one question for Alexis. Alexis, you're working on ORAN. Do you know to go back to previous diagram?
Okay,
and one question. Do you see it's okay connection between SMO to Nephew using O1, O2, those interfaces? O1, O2 interface is kind of imperative, and they have a model, they have the operations. So I think Nephew, I don't know, we're gonna put, maybe you can put the northbound interface in Nephew, but normally that's not the decorative. So that's why I'm a little curious about, you're okay with this arrow between the ORAN SMO and then using O1, O2, those things.
From my perspective, the intention of Nephew is to fulfill what O2 and O1 and O2 interface are meant to do. Whether it will be compatible to the ORAN specification is TBD, right? So I understand your point. I think a suggestion was made before to completely remove O1, O2. I believe it was added back. So I personally don't have opinion. This is part of when Tim is going to present in this deck, he will brought these things up as we discussed yesterday or 2 days ago. So right now, from a Nephew X ORAN standpoint, these are completely up in the air, and we don't want to make any assumption today. That slide is full of assumptions already. So I think it could be kept here, but I think I understand where you're coming from, and I definitely agree with you.
Yeah, that's what confusion. So because also I one time I talked to Seshu, who is OSCPTL. I think he's gonna share his diagram, at the event, but he's seeing ORAN and OSC talking to Nephew using intent. And then his view is Nephew southbound interface using O1, O2 Kubernetes API. So that's why I think that you have to sort out the architecture view. So some believe the Nephew is in the O cloud, some believe Nephew is an SMO. That's why if the Nephew is in the SMO, then Nephew southbound will be used O1, O2 if you're following the ORAN specification. That's why this kind of labeling, I'm not too comfortable, because first of all, Nephew, they are using decorative and then GitHub based going to CI/CD, and not this kind of direct connection. Also, the position of the Nephew, if you apply the ORAN specification, which is part of the SMO or part of the O cloud, it's confusing. I think your diagram, Alex, is you put the Nephew management cluster in part of the O cloud, but some other company, they putting the Nephew part of the SMO. That's why this kind of labeling is too early. And then I think the workshop at the event, and I think that they should sort it out. But I think the people, as Tal said, people look at the picture first, right? And are they doing this kind of interface without, reading the whole detail? That's what I'm kind of worried about. So that's why I asked you, Alexis, not put you on the spot. Sorry.
No, okay. But slide 8 will address all the things you said.
Okay.
That's
Right.
the purpose
And-
of slide 8 when we get
Right,
there.
and this is only serving as an introduction to basically all the upcoming deeper dive presentations coming after that. So some of the messaging will address that. And
I think the label should be empty to me. If you're talking about more detail in the slide 8, this diagram should not mention it. Otherwise, it's confusing.
I'm
to me.
okay with that. So if we are just leaving the K8 APIs, I'm good with that as well. Because in reality, I also asked the Google team if they are going actually be implementing the O1 and O2 APIs for the specifications when specifications are released. I even heard the intentions that they will implement the O1 and O2 APIs, and they were intentionally kept there with that thought in mind.
I think the right label should be intent, just simply intent. Whatever, Kubernetes or not is intent. What we are passing intent to our nephew.
Intent
anyway,
in what context? Intent in what context? Intent in the context of the cloud configuration, the network function
intent can be
configuration.
anything, right? Intent can be the network function deployment. Intent for is something else, right? That's why we're using intent. So intent is very vague term, but we are
It's
using
very vague, yeah.
So if I may provide a resolution to this,
right.
Remove O1/O2/K8, just leave APIs. And
Yeah,
the API can be an intent, can be anything.
Yeah. I thought that way. It's a good one. So it's simplify here. And then you said slide 8.
Can we show the API scope like I did for network function deploy and manage APIs would be the cloud and network function APIs, like something that describes the scope of these APIs. What are these APIs?
Infra and NF.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think I'm okay with this. Now, however we describe that, I think would be left to the evolution of the various modules in Nephew and even SMO. Even the O1 and O2 specs are also evolving at the same time. So I think it's good to leave it open. Okay. I wanted to quickly dive into the next slides. Alexi, these are your slides, right?
This is Tim's slide, but we created this slide as a group, so he's gone now, but I can talk about things if needed here.
I want to make sure that all these slides are the introduction ones. When we switch speakers, like if I go and I leave this open, would have the correct presenter's name. So please pay attention to that. If it's
yes,
right.
You're good here. You're good. This is Tim's.
Okay.
Tim's is going to present these things. Yes.
Okay, go ahead. Walk us through this very quickly. If everything looks good, we can move on.
Okay. Well, first slide is going to be background on ORAN architecture. So this is really ORAN. And then the second slide, slide 7, is what it means, where Nephew fits in ORAN. So that's slide 7.
Alexi, I don't know if Tim's still working on that. This could be made bigger, right? We have space here. And this is very, very small, this diagram.
Yes, yes, agreed. We can do that. Leave that to me. The polishing, leave that to me for later on. Right now, I'm just conveying the message, right? High level.
Okay.
Then this is just about explaining that an ORAN OCloud deployment is constituted of OCloud site, and then there are OCloud instances. Again, I need to polish the slide, but the point here is just to explain some of the ORAN terminology. And then slide 8 is about really the mapping of the ORAN architecture with Nephew with some suggestions. So this is where you see in the SMO, there is that blue box interface that needs further discussion for implementation. Like, we believe there might be things, we don't know what. We believe that interface that should be implemented in Nephew, that O2 will be implemented in Nephew. Now, how and what? It's TBD, and then, so that's a little bit of an initial mapping that we came up with. I won't discuss the mapping now, but that's for everybody to review if you want to. And then the next slide, I don't recall. Can you?
Okay, I'll keep going. Here we go. 9.
Yeah. So these are the open questions, and the fourth one: does Nephew scope include implementation of function FOCOM-F NFO within the SMO? What we discussed here. So these are open-ended questions that requires further consideration and clarification for Nephew to answer as part of this working group 2. And then slide 10 and 11 is more the path that we're going to take to bring exactly realizing ORAN in Nephew. And so it's going to be right now done with OAI as the provider of open source network function, other open source partners, and obviously Nephew. And slide 11 is an approach where we crawl, walk, and run with specific type of deliverables per Nephew release. We don't necessarily want to commit to Nephew release versions, but this is what, for instance, we could expect. And that's, to the best of our knowledge today, it could evolve. So that's not cast in stone. So that's what Tim will cover.
It looks good to me. I don't have any confusions or concerns. It's very realistic in terms of where ORAN is, and actually it's evolving itself, and Nephew is evolving itself. So possibilities exist one way or the other, and there is nothing. I like the messaging around it, Alexis. If it's this way, I think it won't create a lot of confusion for anyone. Any questions?
One question. So you're not dealing with the OAM here, right? So Alexis, OAM, they talking to ORUDU directly, not necessarily going through Nephew, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's why we haven't mentioned UAM.
Okay, that's why I thought. Okay.
And it would be the hardest part to basically deal directly with Nephew anyway. A lot of vendors for the OEM components are closed, and they will be closed for some time. So even if we present that idea, I think the actual implementation of that wouldn't happen for quite some time in the industry.
Okay. Sana, one more point. As
Right.
Barada said,
right.
The Nephew, we are pushing for decorative intent, distribution and the CD-based orchestration. So if you put the API, many people confuse with the imperative, like conventional interfaces. So I know that we're not ready for detail, but that's why putting API, I still have, it's okay for now, but I still have some concern. How do people receive that API meaning? Because SC, you've been there. So
SC were the worst APIs. I know. I can completely see, but not what you're saying. I think in the messaging, I would.
It's beyond. It's beyond.
Beyond. Sorry. I think in the messaging, we could make it clear that these are not imperative APIs, like the existing industry has worked with those kind of APIs and have not succeeded in accomplishing their true cloud native scalable automation. These are declarative APIs and they're intent based, and I think that philosophy has to be captured everywhere. With even if there are APIs and interfaces shown, I think that has to be preserved. That vision and can be captured in the messaging.
Yeah, you should. Yeah, otherwise it's confusing. Okay.
I know.
Yeah,
I know what you mean by HC APIs. Go ahead.
No, but in ORAN, there is the cloud native O1 that is currently undergoing, and I spearheaded IMS declarative interface, but I just produced a technical report in ORAN, and I can tell you not all the services can be declarative. It doesn't make sense.
Right.
That's as much as we can.
So we need to be well. Don't worry. That's what I've been pushing in Nephew, in ORAN. But I wouldn't go into this detail at this point in time. This is too many details about ORAN for Nephew. Let's stick to, I think, the high level details that we put in there, and as we discuss more and more with Nephew, I think we'll get a better understanding of what we want to do.
Yeah. Also, the Sana, the second day, the Timo, I'm gonna represent the ONEP. We're gonna talk. I'm gonna cover very high level. What's the delegation? What's the integration point with the ONEP and Nephew, and possibly through the ORAN. But for now, we're not ready for what kind of a diagram we're gonna pointing ONEP to the Nephew, because that line could be confusing. So anyway, but very interested. The delegating some of the CNFM orchestration to Nephew from ONEP perspective. Yeah,
that to me seems to be the best short-term scope for Nephew, the CVNFM capability, like whatever's done there.
Yeah, I totally understand functional delegation. I'm totally agree there, but how to go there, that's not sure.
Right.
Not yet.
Right. I agree. Yes. I agree. Lots of question marks there. So there is one more presentation for day one, and Tol's basically coming and presenting this. Tol, you said you don't have any slides, but when you do, and if you have something, you can insert here. You have the edit rights anyway, right?
I should, yeah.
The title looks good. There's something else on the agenda. Should I put UI? What was that? You can make it consistent.
I'll give this some thought. I'm clearing tomorrow to create all my presentations. Hopefully I won't get any disruptions and be able to finish it. Yeah.
Okay, Tall, you can make it consistent here and there, right? If it needs to be done. UX and modeling and Tosca. Do you think this is a good label? Maybe I can input that here.
No, it's a little awkward. I don't know.
Okay.
Let me give it some thought. Yeah.
Take your time. We have successfully finished day 1 and we are 5 minutes left, and now we are in day 2. In day 2 we now have 2 different presentations on this, right? Maybe we should call it out with the slide breaker. Nephew and observability is first. Nephew observability, what was the name?
Yeah.
Right? And then the other one is
Yeah,
service assurance and policy. And this one's Tall and Subhash, what is your full name?
Hey, Sana, can you quickly post
Subhash Kumar Singh. Subhash Kumar Singh.
Subhash Kumar Singh, right? I was going to see his full name.
Yeah. SINGH.
Is it
could
good?
You quickly, I think there's an H.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you
go. Where,
right there.
Here?
Right. No, where your cursor is.
Subhash. Okay.
So now, can you quickly post the link on the chat for this document?
Yes, absolutely, right here.
Thank you. By the way, I'm going to move the document to, I've created a folder for all our presentations for the summit. I'm going to be sending an email out soon to everybody on what to do with that. But yeah, I'll move the document there. The link will remain the same. It'll just be placed in a different place on the Google Drive.
Thank you so much, Tall. Tall, I rely on you for doing these things because I have a corporate block. Like when I'm in the Google documents, I'm restricted to do a lot of things with that. Like outside of my organization, I can't even share that with people. So when you and Kaushik create that, I rely on your documents to do the editing work.
The permission work has been very hard. I'll just let you all know that for now, I'm giving world edit to that folder. So anybody with a link can go in and edit everything. I'm really going to hope, wing in a prayer, that nobody destroys anything. We don't have any spammers. I'll close that, of course, after the summit. But I just think for now, it's just too hard for me to manage individual pings from people. So everybody has permission to do anything they want with that folder.
Thanks, Tall. I think we don't have sites for these people, and these people, if they want to, should put their sites in here so that the continuity stays. Tall and Subhash, you will put something here when you have that ready. And Alexi has already put his slides here. Alexi, you are presenting this section, right?
Correct, yes.
Should I say the others are contributors, but like not presenters?
Oh, yes. You can say that I'm just a voice here.
And additional contributors are these?
Well, not additional contributors. Main contributors are Sagar and Joseph. I'm just delivering their contribution.
So you're generous, but I need to put.
It's good to put it the way you want it. I think it's good enough for me. But anyway, I'll frame it that way when I start, because that's the reality. I don't want to take credit for their work.
Very nice, Alexis. Very nice.
All good. I don't know what to do with this blog, but I think this won't show like that.
Yeah, that's good.
We can see what there is to present here.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, but the intro to OpenAir interface might not necessarily happen in this. I might rework a bit the slides, but then the goal is the ORAN architecture. But this is not the same as day one. If you go slide 20, I think this is how we took the ORAN architecture and Nephew architecture and what we actually implemented in release 2. So we look at, OCUCP, OCUUP, and the ODU provided by OEI, created the operators for Nephew to support this NF. And then if you go down, it's more details about the deployment blueprint of OEI for basically RAN with OEI on Nephew. And then the slide after.
So this slide,
about...
give me 1 second. The slide, the words in that are not readable. So if the intention is to make it readable, I think there are some edit opportunities there. But if not,
yeah,
maybe...
feedback is taken. As I said, I will work my magic to make this slide look good.
Okay, all good.
Right
all
now,
good.
Right now, I don't know. I felt some pressure to put the slides in there, but I'm the only one. So slide 22 is more about how we actually delivered. So we created a high-level intent. We explained how the intent is getting realized. And on the right-hand side is more the how it's being done with some code example. And then slide 23 is the actual operators that were delivered. And here, showcasing the fact that we can do operators in different ways. And in this case, we have some Go code that has been generated and bootstrapped from Helm to Go, and some other type of operators written in Python. So the point to say here is that Nephew is agnostic to actually the type of the technology used to produce the operator. And actually, the OEI operators are a proof of this.
Excellent, good point.
And slide 24 is exemplifying the CRs that were produced. This is not